The European Union has approved a 10th package of sanctions against Russia. This comes as G7 leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy held a virtual summit to mark the 1 year since the conflict began. G7 nations have vowed more support for Kyiv and severe costs for countries helping Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. has also announced a new round of sanctions against Russia, with over 200 individuals and entities on the list. Nathan King has more from Washington.
On this anniversary, US President Joe Biden meeting remotely with his G7 counterparts. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, Ukrainian president, also addressing that meeting, thanking Western nations and the G7 for all their support. But as you know, he wants more weapons, and soon.
I would like to focus on what Ukraine needs so that our coalition of defenders of freedom becomes a coalition of winners in 2023.
Yeah, there's marking very much this 1 year anniversary, the US with yet more doubling down on this conflict. Remember, in the last year, it went from offers of helmets from Germany to now talking about fighter jets with long-range missiles, tanks and everything in between. And the sanctions are being tightened too. The US choosing this moment to announce sanctions on over 200 entities, mainly from Russia, but also from other countries as well, including some Chinese companies that they accuse of evading Western sanctions. Remember, these are not UN sanctions. These are Western sanctions, largely from the US and the EU and some Asian allies. It's very interesting to see where this will go, because essentially, as we had this, you've seen that the US doubling down. There have been peace murmurings from Brasilia to Beijing. Each nation that is not have a investment in this fight is trying to move forward. Remember, in the past year, we've had rocketing food prices, rocketing energy prices, and while those have stabilized for now, the fears are new offensives could bring more economic pain to the world that really is far, far away from this European conflict. Now, a lot of these peace proposals have been dismissed almost immediately by Washington. They essentially say that Vladimir Putin could solve this whole conflict by withdrawing his troops right away. But even European nations recognize that the security architecture of Europe post-Ukraine conflict also has to satisfy some Russian security demands. Otherwise, we're never going to move forward from this simmering conflict, which essentially dates back to 2014 or even before. Nathan King, CGTN at the White House.